skore vinder shalkudio, shaknegeruvan shalkudio, skore vinder shalkudio, shaknegeruvan, oh me oh, and the skipper, oh me oh, and shaknegeruvan, oh me oh, and the skipper, oh me oh, and shaknegeruvan, oh me oh, and the skipper, oh me oh, and shaknegeruvan, oh me oh, and the skipper, oh me oh, and shaknegeruvan, oh me oh, and the skipper, oh me oh, and shaknegeruvan.
El Sendero de las Meigas y de la Santa Compaña nació con el libro La llama del amor, ensayo sobre una nueva arquitectura para el tercer milenio. Y en concreto, cuando redacté el proyecto Mi Casa, un pazo casa pairal, un hábitat autárquico, autosuficiente y holístico. Y al estudiar las energías sutiles del macroambiente exterior de la zona donde va ubicado el proyecto Mi Casa, en Merza, Vila de Cruces, en la comarca del Deza. Las energías sutiles de los lugares por donde pasa el sendero son las energías que forman el cuerpo energético sutil del Sendero de las Meigas y de la Santa Compaña. También podrán ver que el sendero tiene dos inicios. Uno en el santuario Nuestra Señora Virgen de Oibás, en Piloño, Vila de Cruces, y otro en las cataratas Fervenza, La Toxa, y en el bosque Nido del Amor, y estos dos tramos concluyen en la plaza Galicia, punto de encuentro, en el Parque da Carixa, en la aldea de Merza, Vila de Cruces. A partir de aquí, el sendero continúa con un único itinerario hasta el final del mismo, en el santuario de Nuestra Señora de la Virgen do Corpiño, no Corpiño en la Lima.
Along the path, a series of paranormal and miraculous phenomena have occurred in particular areas, and the thinking patterns and these happenings give life to the physical body of the path. Our Lady, the Virgin Meigas, according to those who worship her, is the first sister of the Virgin do Compaña. By accepting an isolated place in the forest, God granted her the power that said, "Whatever they ask of you, I will grant it." Our Lady, the Virgin Meigas, does not want her door to be closed. She prefers that the worshippers can pray and ask for blessings without any problems. Her worshippers say that when they went to pray and ask for a blessing, after they had finished their prayers, the sacristan closed the chapel door and they all left and went home. But it was surprising to discover that after a few hours, the door would open and nobody knew how. They decided to hide themselves among some bushes and trees in front of the chapel door in order to see who would open the door. After 4 hours, a noise was heard, and they watched how the door miraculously opened on its own. A woman explained to me another paranormal and miraculous happening of the Virgin, which is a real fact, when I was doing work in the field in order to study the subtle energies of the path. This worshipper of the Virgin of Our Lady, Meigas, explained to me that she was 4 months pregnant with a baby girl and she was very ill. The doctor visited her, and after a thorough examination, he told her that the baby girl was practically dead, and that she had to abort the child and the pregnancy would not continue. She replied and told him that even at the risk of losing her life, she believed and had faith in our Virgin Meigas, and the baby girl would live, and so she made a promise that if the child survives, then she will go from her house barefooted to the chapel of Meigas. The pregnancy carried on, and after the child was born, she decided to fulfill the promise. She set forth on the path, which was full of stones and weeds, barefooted. As she continued down the path, she felt more hypnotized by and drawn to the Virgin Meigas, in such a way that she could not see or hear the people who she encountered along the journey. After arriving at the place and having prayed to the Virgin, the surprise was that her feet were perfectly intact. They had no scratches or injuries. The elderly lady, Senora Concha y Caetana, who worked with me during my childhood in taking the cows to be pasteurized into the forest, also explained to me some of the paranormal legends and happenings. One time during my youth, we went walking from Merta to Polonium, through the same route where the path passes through nowadays. A 100-year-old tree can be found along this path, and if you were to take shelter and relax a little underneath the tree in the shade, and you said beautiful and positive words to it and you gave it a hug, when you continued down the path you would feel stronger and better for the rest of the journey. Finally, at 53 years old, I discovered the tree O Pequeño Matusalén by designing the path of the Meigas and Santa Compaña and going over its route. When I saw it, I did not doubt myself for a second. This is my Pequeño Matusalén, the tree that used to transmit the subtle energy to Senora Concha y Caetana. Due to the scientific research of Masaru Emoto, nowadays we know that water is like people and plants, as they all have memory. They understand us and they can recognize the content of thoughts, words, music and images. Therefore, I propose to all the walkers of the path of the Meigas and Santa Compaña, in order to take in the subtle energies like Senora Concha y Caetana did, when you walk through the area where the O Pequeño Matusalén tree is, take a stop on the path and do the following. Relax for 10 minutes underneath the tree in the shade. Take the lid off the water bottle and say beautiful and positive words to the tree, just like Masaru Emoto did in his experiments, and drink a little bit of the water. And before continuing along the path, embrace the O Pequeño Matusalén. If you are a woman, give 2 hugs. If you are a man, give 3. According to Pythagoras and his mystic numbers, the numbers determine the nexus of everything, and the mechanics of the entire universe are the basis of the spirit, and the only thing which demonstrates reality. The dyad number, number 2, the feminine principle, the Vesica Pisces, where the masculine and feminine principles nest together. 2 plus 3 equals 5, symbol of matrimony. The triad number, number 3, the masculine principle and the first shape which emerges from the Vesica Pisces. This is why women give 2 hugs and men give 3. In the Dacarisha Park in Mersa, Villa de Cruces, and in the new Plaza Galicia, the meeting point, El Corgo da Queimada, is where the routes end, coming from the chapel of the Virgin Oibaz in Polonio, Villa de Cruces, and the route coming from the waterfall Fervenza de Tosha, and the forest called the Nest of Love in Saleda. And it is an invitation to all Galician people and any visitors to meet there, all those who want to hear and walk down the path of the Dodeda mysteries. The plaza is formed by a working sculpture named El Corgo da Queimada, whose thinking patterns are based on some extraordinary facts, which are: the territorial distribution of Galicia is holistic. There are always two women in the heart of a Galician man. Galicia our mother, and his wife. And the poem, Galicia, 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 Northern I, Northern I, Northern I. Aristotle, with his saying, "The whole is greater than the sum of its parts," was one of the first in discovering the holistic concept. We know that the holistic knowledge is fixed on capturing simultaneously all the aspects or parts which form one thing and the way in which these parts interact with one another, in order to create this object as a result. To be alive, an idea which is so specific and original that it cannot be confused with any other. This means that 2 plus 2 holistically is not equal to 4, but 5. 5, or pentad, pentagram, is the number of man and of living nature, of the growth and natural harmony of the soul's movement, and it symbolises the microcosmic man.
Your inner beauty gives off rays of light and love like water, moss, and the rocks of the river Deza, which join together and form a phantasmagorical image, which the downwards current flows through the times of yesterday, of today, and of tomorrow, and the wind's breeze rises and moves the branches and leaves of the trees, which allow the discovery of our hidden lives from the past and the present. Some loves are like nature. They are a continuous challenge of evolution, and therefore we have to love them and learn to defend them, following a continuous process of improving and growing. Whatever stops is lost, because the path of love is lost, which becomes disguised in shadows and light to the beginning of every spring, which in the silence of the forest to the arrival of the sunset in the summer, leaves an eternal love in sight, which acclaims the tomorrow with a beautiful song of love, and then the yesterday is already gone. Your mild tenderness is like water, which breaks the current that passes through the mill, that converts the wheat into romantic words, and shelters kisses, hugs, feelings, nostalgias, loves, poetry, and songs in the distance, which emerge from the murmur of the crystalline waters of the small river pool, which provides water to the new Dakarisha Park, where the kisses, hugs, feelings, nostalgias, loves, poetries, and songs from before, from now and forever, cross over and live together.
Continuing towards the footbridge of the path along the river Deza to the height of the mouth of the river Tosha, we enter into the forest, the nest of love, amongst the splendour of wild nature, which lets you enjoy the small natural ponds and waterfalls of pure crystalline waters, which reflect the eternal love of couples who are in love. The locals tell a legend which says that a couple who are in love tie a knot with the branches of a cesta tree, and they will return to the forest of the nest of love together in the future. Protected from the sun rays by the top of the oak trees, pine trees, and other indigenous species, we arrive at the waterfall Fervenza de Tosha, situated deep in the beautiful and enchanting forest, which creates a unique place. We leave the Damoa in Mersa by the path which leads to the San Pao Chapel, a magical place as it is under the influences of San Campio, martyr and Roman soldier, whose worshippers appreciated him because during many years of drought they carried him in a procession to the Deza River. They soaked him in the river, and miraculously the following day, or only a few days later, rain started to fall and the peasants were able to save their harvest. That named the meeting point is the pineal gland of the path, with the sculpture named O Corgo da Queimada, which is formed by 5 Meigas, witches, 4 of which are alien, 1 for each province, and a contemporary one for Galicia. They support O Pote da Queimada with virtual fire. The hands of each Meiga hold up the Potes de Queimada, where the people that want to will be able to do the Queimada ritual with whichever alien Meiga they like, or with the contemporary Meiga of Galicia. The 14th of August is the Fiesta da Carisha, and the Fiesta of the Path of the Meigas in Santa Compaña. And the 24th of June, the night of the San Juan festival, is the night of the Queimada ritual, in order to get rid of the bad spirits and purify the Meigas. On this day, the 5 Meigas of the sculpture O Corgo da Queimada will release free liquor for those who want to complete the Queimada ritual. Caetana had wrinkles on her face. When you are a child, you are not able to distinguish these types of life cracks, but you sense them, even though now the memories are few and far between, such as the busy path filled with stones connected our house with theirs, the goat that was tied to the entrance, the noise of the cards, and the sweet taste of coffee. Every night running to the waterfalls to chase away the fear, We crossed the meadow. One time we called at her door, 2 times, and then she appeared, with messy hair due to her daily work, and she offered us a cup of coffee whilst we played brisca. By growing up, the majority of the details have been forgotten, as if the years had been tarnished. But in the back of my memory, these legends live on, which were repeated to us every single night. Legends about condemned love, evil returns, stories about the fields which had survived in the cracks of each generation, and that now have all been shaken from me, in the same way that someone falls in love with another without knowing why. Another time, Senora Concha y Caetana, amused in my childhood of miraculous and paranormal legends and happenings, explained to me another true event. I have known that there are various types of Meigas, and amongst them there exist the Feiticeras, which are the ancient Meigas who possess a very beautiful voice, and with their songs they hypnotise young boys. They then take these boys to the river, as they are drawn towards the water, and when they get there, the boys are drowned. This is what happened to a young camper who was attracted by the beauty of the enchanted forest near the Caballerio convent, and he was hypnotised by a Meiga, and he was then drawn to the river where he was drowned, and his body was found a few days later. The second paranormal event that was explained to me by a family member is the story of this person who one time was walking along the path, returning home, with the ground wheat loaded on the horse. Once they had crossed the Dodemo Bridge, he noted an intense smell of candles in an area of bushes. He was afraid, and he quickly hid amongst the cesta trees. Immediately, a sad procession of 2 lines of nuns appeared on the Dodemo Bridge. The nuns were dressed in robes, and their hoods meant that their faces could not be seen. They were barefooted, and their feet did not touch the ground. They were transporting a kind of coffin with a body in it whose identity he immediately recognised, but without a doubt the Santa Compaña had been there. And incredibly, the person who was in the coffin died 2 weeks after the appearance of the Santa Compaña. Arriving at the end of the path on top of the hill, you can find the sanctuary of Our Lady, Virgin do Corpinho, and the legend says that in this place, a pious worshipper of the Virgin disappeared mysteriously, and after a short while the body was found dead and strangely incorrupt. They decided to bury him in that same place where he was found and erect a chapel in his name. This chapel was called O Corpinho. Over the years, the chapel became derelict, but in the 12th century, some shepherds looking for shelter went into the chapel, and a natural light came through, and they were able to see the Virgin in the middle of a chapel holding a baby boy and a bunch of flowers. As a sign of gratitude, the neighbours set up the sanctuary in her honour. There are witnesses that have lived through the recovery do Meigallo and the depression with help from visits and prayers to the Virgin Lady. I want to conclude with some brief reflections and conclusions. I want to remind you all that the trees and plants, as well as generating and being great detectors of subtle energies, are one of the great instruments that nature uses in order to decontaminate the subtle energy of the planet, and they are some of the transmitters of the vital subtle energies for animals and the human being. They transform the dirty and congested energy into pure energy, which therefore is the surroundings of the path and of the habitat My House, which is completely surrounded by nature. Natural water springs, rivers, waterfalls of pure and crystalline water, and big forests. All this creates an environment which has a positive fate, which means that it has good vibrations. Furthermore, seen as the subtle energies of our ancestors were positive, the sum of all of these create a suitable ecological habitat to live in. The surroundings where I analysed its subtle energies were the town hall of Vila de Cruces, Cieda and Lailin, which is the area where the path of Meigas and Santa Compaña and the habitat My House are located. This meant that I have been able to check that it had a positive fate, which means that it has very good vibrations, and in general in the region of Deza, Santiago and its surrounding areas.
Narin